Doctor of acupuncture and traditional Chinese medicine. I have 2 doctorates and also a doctor in naturopathic medicine. I think they come from a science Newtonian background where everything must be proven, double-blind studies, blah, blah, blah. But the biology and physiology of the human body is secular to the individual. In other words, it doesn't deal with, you can't give somebody one pill and expect the same results. I was teaching a class with a bunch of doctors and I asked them about caffeine, coffee. And I said, how does coffee affect you? And by the time we'd finished on the board, there was a whole list of everything from constipation, diarrhea, keeps you awake, keeps you asleep, metabolism goes up, metabolism goes down. There was roughly about 30 different symptoms that one drug gave 24 people. So how can we give somebody a pill for Alzheimer's or arthritis or endometriosis and say it's going to work? Well, it doesn't, because otherwise the pharmacies wouldn't be making new drugs all the time. Some people are ready to grasp a new way of healing, and some people are ready to grasp an old way of healing. I always say there are 2 types of patient. There's a conventional patient and a naturopathic patient. With the alternative medical patient, they always say, what do I need to do to get better? Whereas conventional MD doctor type patient, they always say, will you make me better? Or what can you do to make me better? Or do you have any experience with my pathology? They like to take ownership of their pathology. Whereas in conventional medicine as opposed to allopathic medicine, there's a huge divide. And the allopathic patient just wants to change. They realize at a very deep level they must change something, because it's that something, their life history, which created that pattern which made that problem appear in the first place. We hold a lot of things in when we're the mind-body connection is so powerful that, especially you see this a lot with psychiatric patients who have multiple personalities. I remember when I was in Salisbury Old Man Hospital in England, we had a patient who had multiple personalities, and when he was George, he had full-blown MS. He had lesions from CAT scans in the brain, everything. And when he had 3 personalities. When he was Michael, he was allergic to wheat, and when he was John, I think it was, he was allergic to something else. So they had a pad on each arm, which told you who he was. But the interesting thing was that when he wasn't George, and they CAT scanned him, there were no lesions in the brain. And this happened within 15 seconds. Energy field's a whole new ballgame. We all have an energy field, and a lot of people say, well, I don't see it, so I don't believe it. NASA now has a device which they can wave in front of you, and it will tell you your EKG, your blood pressure, your pulse, everything. Because what people don't know is their heart has an energy field that radiates some 10 feet away from somebody. So when you're in the presence of somebody who has a dominant heart, the entrainment starts to happen. In other words, the more powerful heart starts to entrain, just like when you get a bunch of women together and they start to menstruate all at the same time over a long period of time. It happens even faster with a heart field. If you are calm and you go into a room, you'll bring that calmness into the room. You ever been in a party where somebody comes in and you don't like them instantly, or you like them instantly and you've never met them? It's because their heart field is resonantly positive or resonating negatively.
Can the energy fields be changed? Can you manipulate the energy fields?
Very much.
Do you think that's the future of science?
I think it's a now science. I think there are a lot of people around. I know a certain good healer called Nadine, Mercey, who knows how to manipulate fields. Some people can see auras and they can manipulate. Some spiritual healers, they use other techniques where they're wafting their hands over the body. And other people, they don't need to even be near the person to change that field. I spoke to a medicine man, they call him in Hawaii. And he told me that, you know, this kind of healing, you can't learn it, you're born with it. And you're taught from birth never to doubt yourself, and that's how you go through life. And providing you have more energy than the recipient, you'll always heal them, which is why healers are difficult to heal, because they have natural, strong, powerful energy. And they have to then find another healer who has even more energy to heal them. So these kahunas, they use their energy to override the negative side of the individual, especially with psychiatric patients. A lot of their problem is they're out of a line. You look at the energy fields, chakra fields, and they're oscillating against each other, away from each other. They're not in their bodies properly, and things like this. So they're able to basically take them apart and put them back together again just by changing that field, and which again you don't have to be right there to do. The physical, emotional, the mental, spiritual, the astral. There are a lot of astral effects upon an individual, physical effects upon an individual. There are so many things we can't see, hear, taste and smell, which we rely on all the time. If I saw a chart which shows all the electromagnetic frequencies that we use from television, radios, different wave bands, police, fire, military and so on. And also the spectrum that we can see. And it has this 360-degree multi-layered spectrum, and all we can see is one dot of it, which blew me away, because if all we can see, hear, feel and sense is one dot in this whole field, then we're relying on the wrong thing. We shouldn't be relying on our senses, our taste of sense, smell, sight, touch, feel. I think there's a lot more sickness now than in the past, simply because we're more financially orientated. Everything in Canada especially is genetically modified, so all our food is genetically modified, and anything coming across the border is gamma radiated to stop people from sneaking over the border in produce, and that takes away all the active enzymes in the foods, the fruits. So you can try and eat healthy. A lot of people say, well, I'm eating healthy, I'm having vegetables and fruits, and they're all coming across the border, all are genetically modified, so it looks like carrot, tastes like carrots, no longer a carrot anymore, and all the enzymes of the stuff, the fruits are all dead. And if they're from a place like California, they have a lot of rocket fuel and stuff like that. Every state has its particular problem, and every province has its particular problem. To prove that we're multidimensional beings is really simple. We need to look at quantum physics. Quantum physics is moving far away from Newtonian physics. Newtonian physics we now call quantum mechanics. Quantum physics is moving more towards almost a deity, like who is God. You read books like the Wu and Fang Shi or the Wooly Masters, things like that. And it basically is a book about quantum physics linking in with the human etheric, the human aura, the human energy factor. The mind is powerful. Quite a while ago, they had a big meeting of all the physicists. And the reason they had this big meeting in Copenhagen was simply because one physicist was lining up atoms, and he found when he got to a certain number of atoms, all the rest in the experiment lined up. So we'll say 7. So every time he lined up 7 atoms, they all lined up. And he wrote a paper on it, and he sent it out. So everybody wanted to repeat the experiment. So they all did. And then the phone started ringing, because some people said it was 24, some said it's 14, some said it's 12. So they all got together, and they did the experiment, and as each person did the experiment, each person found that they were right, but they were using the same machinery. So person A, who said it was 7, he did 7, and they all lined up. Person who said it was 14, he did 14, then they all lined up. They realized there was an equation which they weren't taking into consideration, the uncertainty principle. That is, that man has a brain. And just like Schroeder's cat, when they brought that theory of does the cat alive or is it dead, so on, they realized that the person is actually influencing the outcome of the experiment. So they declared all experiments prior to that date as null and void, because it depends on the experimenter as to what the results are going to be. So when you look at that, if we have the ability to create and change at an atomic level through science, which can be proven time and time and time again, why haven't we got the ability to do it with a human being, to change their energy field? So quantum physics is moving closer to what spiritual healing or energy healing is all about. And they're proving it in a day-to-day thing.
What would you like to see directly in your practice regarding energy birth?
A more generalized acceptance. Unfortunately, with the conventional modalities we have today, everybody's talking about blind studies. With double-blind studies, the problem there is the human person is an unknown equation. Although they do test and they do use a drug or they use a piece of equipment and they say, we're getting this kind of results, I think most people are not naive anymore. They realize that the experiments are going on, and probably thousands of experiments are going on, and only 100 is being taken as being the ones that they want to use to show the world how good or bad this is.